Hey guys, what's going on? John here, back again for another Magic the Gathering video, and in today's video, I've got a Liesa Shroud of Dusk Commander deck tech for you. Now, if you'll recall, on the first episode of Commander Showdown, I did play this deck list. It's been updated a little bit since then, but it's pretty much the same core list. You'll see a lot of the cards I played in that episode come up in this deck list. First thing I'd like to say before getting into this, thank you guys so much for 100 subscribers. We finally hit the milestone after that previous video. Kind of popped off, and so a massive thank you to all 108 of you that are currently subscribed to my channel. If you'd like to support me more, then I do have a Patreon, but of course the base way to support me is to just subscribe. It's still a huge help. That sort of feeds into channel promotions, which I already sort of did. I'll say Patreon, though, does have tiers from $1 to $16, so a lot of options there. And you do get some really cool perks if you join the Patreon. Like special roles on my new Discord server, which will be linked in the description. And special pack openings and deck tech recommendations. So link to the Patreon and the Discord and the deck list for this deck in the description below. So first off, let's go over the commander. It's Liesa, Shroud of Dusk. Costs 2 white, black. She's a 5/5 legendary creature angel. She allows you to pay 2 life rather than pay 2 as her commander tax. She has flying, lifelink, and whenever a player casts a spell, they lose 2 life. So our first category in this deck is going to be life gain. We want to gain a lot of life because we're going to be losing it on cast, and when we gain a lot of life, that means we're going to break sort of the parity that Liesa brings into the game naturally with her life loss ability. So starting off is going to be Auriok Champion and Suture Priest, which are both classic Soul Sisters cards. Gives us life when creatures ETB. Cryptghast and Blind Obedience are both of our extort cards, so we can pay mana when we cast spells to drain opponents. And Cryptghast doubles our swamped mana. Blind Obedience functions as sort of a stacks piece that slows down more aggressive decks. Then we've got Children of Corliss and Tainted Sigil, which both allow us to gain a ton of life if us and other players have lost a ton of life. So they allow for big life swings. And Alhammaret's Archive also allows for big life swings, but in a different way because it doubles our life gain and also doubles our card draw, which is really nice in an Orzhov deck that doesn't necessarily have a lot of it. Next up, we've got 2 1-drops. It's going to be Serra Ascendant and Shadow Spear. Serra Ascendant is usually a 6/6 lifelinker with flying for 1, and Shadow Spear also is helpful because it grants lifelink, but also forces our opponent's permanents to lose hexproof and indestructible if we want. Next up, we've got some Planeswalkers. Ajani, Strength of the Pride, gains us a lot of life, and also exiles our opponent's entire boards. Kaya, Ghost Assassin, drains her opponents, messes with their hands, and also allows her to blink herself and another creature. Sorin Grim Nemesis gets us some card advantage and forces opponents to lose life. Is a targeted removal spell, and that ultimate is pretty much game-breaking if we can pull it off. And then Sorin Markov, of course, because the -3 is incredibly powerful, but he also does do some draining stuff, which is super helpful. So our next category is our life gain payoffs. The first one we've got is Heliod Sun Crowned, which allows us to put 1/1 counters on things when we gain life, as does Cradle of Vitality, but Cradle of Vitality forces us to pay mana, but puts 1/1 counters on creatures for each life you gained. Resplendent Angel makes us 4/4 white angel tokens if we gain 5 or more life this turn, which is helpful because Liesa is a 5/5. Karlov the Ghost Council and Witch of the Moors both function as removal based on life gain, with Karlov having the added bonus of getting big with the counters, and Witch of the Moors having the added bonus of recurring something from the graveyard. Well of Lost Dreams is the most powerful life gain payoff. We can pay X when we gain life, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life we gained, and then draw X cards, which is extremely powerful. Next up, we've got life payment. So we also are gaining a ton of life, so why not pay all of that life, because we have a ton of it to spare. So the first one's Vilis, who's an 8/8 demon that allows us to pay life to kill our opponent's creatures, and whenever we lose life, we draw that many cards, which is insane with Liesa's ability, because Liesa forces us to lose life on casting spells. So we have tons of ways to lose life, and Vilis is just incredible. Another way to lose life is Necrologia, which is like a one-time Necropotence effect. We can pay life to draw cards during our end step at instant speed, which is super helpful for refilling a empty hand. Arguel's Bloodfast allows us to pay life repeatedly to draw cards, and then flips into a land which taps for black and allows us to gain a bunch of life if we're at a low life total. Vona, Butcher of Magan, functions as some life gain, but also a removal spell that forces us to pay life, but again, that's helpful in some situations. Phyrexian Reclamation, Reanimate, and Command the Dreadhorde also mess with our graveyard. They allow us to reanimate and recur things and pay life for them, but usually that's definitely worth it and allow us to win games very quickly. Necropotence allows us to pay a ton of life and draw a ton of cards each turn. Always refills our hand, and honestly is one of the best cards ever printed, so I definitely can't leave this out of the deck. It's just so good for refilling our hand completely every single turn and never running out of cards. Our next category is stacks and tax. I know a lot of people typically don't like stacks effects, but most of these are just life loss taxes and life gain on our end, so people don't necessarily mind these effects. Cabal Council of Allocation functions as a second copy of Liesa, albeit slightly different. Sangromancer gains us a ton of life when opponents' creatures die and when opponents discard, and Bloodchief Ascension, if we can get it to trigger, which, hint, Liesa makes opponents lose 2 life, so it's super easy to put the quest counters on it. If we can get it to trigger, it will have opponents losing 2 life and us gaining 2 life for them putting a card into a graveyard from anywhere, which is extremely insane. They cast an instant or sorcery spell, boom, they lose 2 life, we gain 2. They also are losing 2 from Liesa, and if we have Cabal out, they're losing 2 more and we gain 2. That's like a 10 life point swing if we've got those out, which is incredible. We've also got Ankh of Misha, which is basically covering the one base that Liesa doesn't cover. She says whenever a player casts a spell, they lose 2 life. Well, now if they even play a land, they lose 2 life. Athreos, God of Passage, basically forces opponents to pay life when our creatures die, or else we get our creatures back. And Karmic Justice basically says whenever one of our non-creature permanents are destroyed, we blow up our opponent's permanents. So this is a really underrated card that I like a lot because it just disincentivizes opponents from blowing up our stuff at all. Like, they really don't want to blow up our stuff because we can just take decisive action against their board. Next up, we've got winning the game. So the way this deck works is we're going to be gaining a ton of life, but a lot of times life gain decks just spin their wheels. We have to have ways to win. So Angel of Destiny, Felidar Sovereign, Test of Endurance all turn our high life totals into wins if we can stick them on board for a turn. Veto / Sanguine Bond coupled with Exquisite Blood is an infinite life drain combo. So we deal 1 damage or we gain 1 life with either of these combos out, and we infinitely drain our opponents, killing them instantly. And then we've got some mass drain effects. So Grey Merchant of Asphodel, Debt to the Deathless, and Exsanguinate all drain our opponents for a ton of life and gain us the life back. Gary also has the added bonus of being a creature we can recur. And then finally, Luminarch Ascension and Aetherflux Reservoir. Aetherflux Reservoir also allows us to turn our massive life total into a weapon with his sort of energy cannon effect, and Luminarch Ascension just allows us to make a ton of angel tokens if we can get it online. And that's game breaking because our opponents just won't be able to deal with it, especially since they've got low life totals due to Liesa. Next up, we've got Ramp. This is pretty simple. I'm just going to go through this quickly. We've got Arcane Signet, Orzhov Signet, Talisman of Hierarchy, all ramp on 2 that taps for our colors, as is Felwar Stone, and then we've got Soul Ring, the quintessential rock at 1, and Wayfarer's Bauble, which gets us a land into play, and we can pay 3 over 2 turns, which is a really nice rate. And then finally, Smothering Tithe, because why would I not include Smothering Tithe in a white deck? It just generates so much mana, because opponents are so reluctant to pay, and if an opponent pulls out a wheel, this just makes an insane amount of mana. Next up, we've got Removal and Board Wipes. This is also pretty quick. Anguished Unmaking, Utter End, both exile non-land permanents. Generous Gift destroys a permanent and gives its controller a 3/3. Heliod's Intervention blows up a bunch of artifacts and enchantments, or can also gain us some life, which is a mode not normally used, but can be helpful in this deck. Swords to Plowshares exiles a creature for 1 mana at super efficient rate. Imp's Mischief is sort of Black's version of a counterspell. I really like this spell, to be honest. It changes the target of a spell with another target, so we can force our opponents to blow up their own creatures or counter their own spells, and we lose life equal to the spell's CMC, but honestly that's helpful a lot of the time for us. We've got 4 board wipes. Kaya's Wrath gives us some life gain, Merciless Eviction, Exiles, and Toxic Deluge allows us to pay some life, and it's super cheap. And then Tragic Arrogance is usually going to represent a huge board state swing, because we can keep all of our best stuff, and our opponents only keep their trash, like their tokens, and like maybe a mana rock that really doesn't matter. Whereas we're keeping our best stuff, so we're going to come out way ahead with this board wipe. Next up, we've got Tutors and Protection, which, again, pretty simple. Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, they both are unconditional tutors, tutor for anything. And Teferi's Protection sort of just phases us out. So if we ever get in a really sticky situation, we just pay 3 to sort of give us an extra turn, give us a way to sort of find our way out of a tough situation, which is super helpful. Next up, we've got lands. Agadeem's Awakening / Agadeem the Undercrypt is normally going to come in as a land, but if we have the mana, we can use its Agadeem's Awakening side to reanimate a bunch of creatures. Ancient Tomb taps for 2. Bajuka Bog exiles graveyards. Cabal Coffers and Urborg combo with each other to generate a ton of mana. Castle Lochthwain draws us cards, but also triggers cards like Veto with life loss synergies. Shambling Vent and Silent Clearing tap for our colors. Silent Clearing can draw us a card. Vault of the Archangel, we can pay mana to give our creatures Death Touch and Lifelink, which gains us some more life. Caves of Koilos, Mantar, and Fetid Heath tap for our colors, as do Godless Shrine, Isolated Chapel, and Vault of Champions. Bright Climb Pathway / Grim Climb Pathway can either be a plains or a swamp in this deck, and Reliquary Tower gives us no maximum hand size, which is helpful with cards like Vilis and Necropotence. And finally, for the lands, we've got 8 swamps, 10 plains, rounding out in the basic land slot. Thank you guys for watching this video. I know this is a lot shorter than my normal deck text, but I'm trying to cut down on the time of the videos, so I hope you enjoy sort of the shorter, more concise versions where I'm not reading out the entire card. If you guys enjoyed the video, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and click the like button. Leave a comment telling me you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it enough, you can go support me on Patreon. It would be a huge help. Allows me to continue making videos and continue buying cards, buying boxes, to make good content for the channel. And the brand new Discord will also be linked in the description down below. Join that. Patrons get special roles in that and access to special chats. That's everything for this video, so thank you guys for watching, and I will see you later.